P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table is brought to you by
and by the makers of Job's Organics granular fertilizers. Great results, less work. EasyGardener.com. And by the makers of Job's Organics granular fertilizers. Great results, less work. EasyGardener.com.
A few ideas about Father's Day coming up right after this. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to Garden to Table. Now, this is all about Father's Day. And when we think of Father's Day, we think about what sort of gift would we give Dad. Often we think of a tie as a gift. I would hope they wouldn't be as hideous as one of these. But in today's show, I thought it might be fun to think of some other fun ways we might celebrate this day with Dad. Stainless steel all the way around, and this is the corner of a massive equilateral triangle. What we have here is the Great Arch in St. Louis, a fascinating story about a park that surrounds this piece of architecture. At the starting point of the Lewis and Clark expedition in St. Louis, Missouri, lies the Jefferson National Expansion Memorial. Designated as a national memorial in December of 1935, the park was established to commemorate three things: the Louisiana Purchase, of which St. Louis was the capital, the first civil government west of the Mississippi River, and the Dred Scott case, which brought the slavery debate to the forefront of American culture and politics. Lying along the banks of the Mississippi River, the 91-acre park is the site of some of St. Louis's most famous buildings, including the old courthouse where the Dred Scott case was first heard, and the Museum of Westward Expansion, where you'll experience the Old West as you take a journey into the past and see the tools, guns, and animals, and wagons of explorers, pioneers, cowboys, and Native Americans who helped forge our nation. But the most famous attraction is the glorious Gateway Arch. The arch itself is actually hollow to accommodate a unique tram system that takes visitors to an observation deck on the top. Unless, of course, they would rather climb the 1,076 stairs in one of the legs. Either way, the view is worth it. Once at the top, visitors can see the mighty Mississippi River to the east and the beautiful St. Louis skyline to the west. At 630 feet, the Gateway Arch is not only Missouri's tallest accessible building, but also the tallest man-made monument in the United States. Construction began on February 12, 1963, and ended on October 28, 1965. The final cost was $13 million. With inflation, that would be over $90 million today. The Gateway Arch officially opened to the public on June 10, 1967. In order to support itself, the arch is heavy, weighing more than 43,000 tons. Today, St. Louis's Gateway Arch is one of the most visited man-made attractions in the world, with over 4 million visitors annually, of which 1 million travel all the way to the top. You know, I hope you've enjoyed learning some interesting facts about this incredible national monument. Let's head over to a local brewery. So I'm here at Schlafly's Bottle Works in the heart of St. Louis. Okay, this is more than just a bottling operation. It's a microbrewery. It's also a restaurant. We also have a fantastic organic garden out there. Vibrant place and a fun place to bring Dad for Father's Day. You know, Matt, what a treat it must be as a chef to be able to come out here and point to things and say, I think I'll fix this,
great.
I'll fix that.
Couldn't ask for anything better in a job.
What's on your mind today?
Today I want you to try this red kale soup that we're gonna make. It's got some local match sausage substitute in it and beans and potatoes. It's just a really hearty, great soup.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. And look at this kale here, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, you can get some of this ready for the soup today.
I just love that pinkish purplish stem. Do you know the variety?
I believe it's Red Russian.
Red Russian.
Yeah.
I'm going to try this one. I've not grown this one before, but I want to try it. How much kale are you going to need for this recipe?
We'll do about a pound today. Yeah,
All
stems and stalks removed, but we can do that later once we're in the kitchen.
Yep. So what you'll do is you'll strip off the foliage from the stalk. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally edible. Just the leaves are a lot more tender than the stalks and stems.
Absolutely. Wonder what Jack's going to plant here later, because this would be one of his winter-fall crops.
That's another great part of the job, is we meet several times a year and we talk about what the restaurant can use and what we should grow and try new stuff.
So there's a real collaboration between what goes on out in the garden and what goes on in the kitchen.
Every day we're talking.
Inspiring stuff. Yeah. All right, is that about what you need,
Yeah,
you think?
that's great.
Okay, let's get started. I can't wait to taste this. I can't wait to try the soup Matt's made. Hey Matt, look at that. Wow. It's beautiful. I can see the kale.
Thank you.
Oh, my mouth is watering.
The soup's got a light cream base. The veggie stock, we started with this garlic and onions. Added the rest of the ingredients. We got some white beans, tomatoes.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Garden kale, potatoes, super hearty soup.
So Matt, I want you to take me through this step by step, because I want to make this at home.
Yeah, it's super easy.
You started out with the sauteing the garlic?
Yeah, lightly sweated some garlic and onions.
Just with some olive oil?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
Over medium heat.
You got the onions and garlic singing together over medium heat. What was the next step?
I'm gonna add the vegetable broth now. You can kick the heat up a little bit. Bring this to a simmer.
Put the full pound of kale in it. Got beautiful color to it. I'm tasting some beans in here as well. I'm seeing some potatoes.
Yeah, white beans and the potatoes, because that really helps thicken the soup. About 5 red potatoes we used. About a single can of Great Northern white beans. About a single can of diced tomatoes. I believe it's about 15 ounces. Two bay leaves, a tablespoon of salt. Potatoes will soak up the salt really well. Some cayenne pepper. It's about a pound of diced red Russian kale. We bring this back to a simmer. Oh, and Alan, there's also a meat substitute in there.
Really?
Yeah, it's a soy product. That is some of their breakfast sausage.
I was thinking maybe this was turkey or something you put in it.
Yeah, it's a great clean slate that picks up a lot of flavors when you cook with it. You slowly put that in and slowly break it into chunks. And then at the end, we just pureed a little bit of the soup mixture and then added it back in, which really thickened it up nicely.
What a great idea. So you took a portion of what you were cooking, pureed it, and then added it back into this more rustic presentation.
Yeah, and the starch really helps thicken it up. You can puree about 2 cups of the soup. Hit it with a little bit of heavy cream, and it gives like a great richness to the soup.
Devil, heavy cream. That makes everything taste good.
Yeah, it does. It makes it nice and rich.
This is very healthy, and it's completely vegetarian.
Yep.
Guarantee you this, I'm gonna make this at home. This is so good. Thank you for sharing it with me.
Oh, you bet. Thanks for coming out to Schlafly Bottle Works and trying some of our food today.
Good stuff. Dan, this place is awesome. I can't believe how big it is. I mean, so I've eaten in the restaurant, I've seen the garden, and now I'm in the brewery.
Right.
What came first?
The brewery.
The brewery came first.
The brewery drives everything. Okay. Essentially, we're a brewer, and everything else kind of flows from that.
How did you get interested in brewing beer? Did you start this in your own backyard?
I started out as a home brewer in college,
Oh, yeah?
and ended up working for a brewery in England for a decade.
Did you really?
Yeah.
And it's grown into this?
It's grown into this. This is a very small brewery by brewing standard.
Well, you know, it doesn't look like a very small brewery to me.
Yeah, it's a small brewery. Let's head up to the brew deck, and we'll see where the magic's made.
Okay, let's do it. Looks like the Enterprise. That's Captain Kirk there.
Well, it's a small brewery.
Mission control.
And Kyle is managing the process here. We make upwards of 50 different beer styles a year.
50.
Well, a lot of guys don't realize
50.
how much variety there is in beer compared, say, to wine.
Yeah.
I mean, with wine, you got white and you got red, so you don't have a ton of variety. With beer, you've got a much broader spectrum, and that comes down to the fact that we make beer from grain. We start with grain as opposed to grape.
And it's not always barley.
No, it can be wheat.
Right.
Those two are the primary grains in brewing.
Sure.
But what you can do with those grains is you can roast them before we add them. And that's what gives beer its caramel color or its black color in a stout or a dark lager. So what we do is we essentially start with grain and we hydrate it, meaning we mix it with water, just like you would do making a bowl of oatmeal.
Right, plump it up.
Plump it up, hydrate it, fill it full of water.
Yeah.
The hard part of brewing is that we take an agricultural product, grain, just like you do with wine, and we have to convert the starch in the grain to sugar.
So what's going on in these vats here?
In this vessel here, we have grain coming down from above.
Oh, I see up here, right.
On the other side of the brewery, we've milled the grain. And then basically right here is where it's going to mix as it goes into this vessel.
Yeah.
If I open this will be full of steam.
Right.
But imagine a giant bowl of oatmeal.
Yeah, sure.
It's just barley meal.
Right.
And it tastes a little bit like grape nuts, because grape nuts as a cereal, that's barley. The next step of the process, we have to boil the sugar liquid. 2 reasons for boiling it. We want to sterilize it because we're going to add a pure culture strain of yeast. We don't want any bacteria or wild yeast. The other key part of boiling, though, is we're going to add the spice. And the main spice in beer is hops.
Right.
And what hops do is make the beer bitter. They lower the pH of it and therefore protect it long-term from other infection.
When I think of beer, I always think of hops.
Right, and that is the traditional spice.
I love growing hops. I think they're a beautiful garden plant. But what other things would you add to a beer?
If we're making a pumpkin beer, we'll add cinnamon or nutmeg or clove.
Okay, yeah.
We make a Christmas ale where we actually add juniper berries.
You're kidding.
Nope.
That's wild.
So really what's going on in the beer world today is we're broadening what is traditional.
Yeah, would you use raspberries?
We use raspberries, but again, that's
I just made that up.
but that's a sugar source.
You do use them though.
We do use them, but we wouldn't add them at this point. We'll add them at the next point, and I'll show that to you.
Let's go.
All right. Here we're watching the fermentations. The conical shaped vessels, those are the fermenters. Because what happens is that as the yeast ferments, it rises to the top.
Right.
Then what happens is we chill the tank down and the yeast settles to the bottom.
Right.
And the reason the tank is conicaled like that is so that we can pull the yeast, crop the yeast off the bottom.
I see.
And then we can
lop it off.
take it off the fermenting beer, and then we can pitch that yeast into the next vessel.
I see.
So you'll use the yeast a number of generations
Excellent.
before you grow a new...
Until it's totally exhausted.
Exactly.
Right.
So once the beer's finished fermenting and conditioning and we've pulled the yeast off, then we may have to filter the beer further to remove any remaining yeast. That's the machine you hear in the background.
I do hear it.
You hear it. That's the centrifuge in the background. Exactly. It's spinning.
Yeah.
We're pulling the rest of the yeast off.
Right.
Then we go into one of the dish bottom tanks. You see one like this tank here.
Right. Yep.
Those
It's not
are the-
conical.
Exactly. Those are packaging tanks. We're going to check the carbonation. Once the carbonation is checked, then we're ready to go. The more sugar available for fermentation, the higher the alcohol, the more CO2.
There we go. I did remember something from chemistry.
Yeah, there's no correlation between color and strength in beer.
When they call it a stout, you just figure it's stronger.
It's stout in color
Yeah,
and
like-
flavor.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
That's very good. Thank you so much. This
No,
is
it's a pleasure.
fascinating. Yes,
All
just
right.
keep up your great work.
Yep.
I love this.
That's how we make beer.
Local brewery.
Local brewery.
Right here. St. Louis is a great place to entertain and to feed Dad. There's so many great restaurants to choose from. Personally, I enjoy local homegrown food. And now there are restaurants throughout St. Louis that are growing some of their own ingredients. So let's take a look at what Chef Anthony Devote at 5 Bistro is preparing today.
My name's Anthony Devote. I'm the chef owner of 5 Bistro on the Hill in St. Louis. We're a farm-to-table restaurant, so we are sustainable from about 150 miles of the city. We do our best to source all of our ingredients locally raised, sustainably raised. At the restaurant, I try to do as much herb gardening and herb growing as I can. Chicken is something that I love to eat. This is one of my favorite things for my own personal Sunday dinner. I started the chicken in medium-high heat. with a touch of olive oil, skin side down. This is farm-raised chicken. It's a heritage red, split directly in half. I take the backbone out, and we leave the rib cage in. That gives the breast a little bit of protection from the heat, just until the skin got a nice light brown color on it. And then we turn it directly over, doing the same thing, getting it going and getting the heat kind of going through the bird itself. And then we put it in the oven just to let it finish cooking. We let it go about 15 minutes on the inner rib cage side of the bird. 15 minutes, and then we flipped it directly over onto the skin side to get the skin really nice and really crisp. We're gonna roast it about another 10 to 12 minutes, and while that's going, we're gonna get our vegetables together, which are a local turnip, ramps, fiddlehead ferns, and little hickory smoked bacon. And we're gonna cut each turnip into eighths. Try to cut them all the same size so that they cook evenly. As our pan kind of heats up, these are our ramps, so we'll cut those there, and we'll save the greens for the very end. But we're going to want to cook those as well. Coated really well with the oil. We're going to add a bit of salt, pepper. Hickory smoked bacon that we do here at the restaurant. This bacon here is actually cherry wood smoked. We're gonna add our ramp bottoms. Ramps are wild leeks, so they have a very strong onion and garlic flavor. After the chicken's finished, after it's gone through its last 10 minutes, 12 minutes, we take it out and we let it rest for about another 4 minutes, just to kind of bring everything, get all the juices redistributed in the chicken. And then I'm gonna add the ferns. These kind of go on a really low heat. And then this pan, which has like all of our good chicken goodies, we're gonna turn the heat on relatively medium or so heat. Add the juice of the lemon. Our ramp greens, just let those in there so they can kind of steam while we're doing this. We're gonna use our spoon. Kind of pull all that off the bottom. Here you can add a touch of white wine, you can add water, or you can add chicken stock. Yeah, this is like a pan jus, a pan sauce. And as you can see, like, it pulled up all those good caramely bits from the chicken off the bottom of the pan. We're just gonna turn the heat up on that, let it cook down nice and slow. We're gonna give these guys a good toss, and as you can see, the greens really brighten up. And then we used some local lettuce that was actually grown by a neighbor of ours, just with a touch of champagne vinegar. Our salt and pepper. You're gonna wanna just toss these really lightly. And then I just like to lay them out and about, kind of taking up the entire plate here, ideally. And then here, taking just our roasted vegetables, and bacon and ramps. Laying them out. As this kind of finishes up, this is sage butter that we made from our garden sage with chives. Little tiny dollop there into the pan. Just kind of give it a swirl. And just kind of let that all melt in there together. This is our chicken here. So we'll just kind of follow the natural breaks of the chicken. Separate the leg and the thigh. Kind of set those guys there and there. And this will just kind of, the cage will just kind of pull away there. One more here. Set this out and about there. And then this is our bit of pan sauce here. And there you go.
A few days before I left for St. Louis, I decided to make one of the city's most talked about dishes. It's a dessert. Let me show you how it all came together. If you've ever been to that great Midwestern city, St. Louis, you've probably had an opportunity to try one of their signature desserts. the gooey cake. And it is really, really good. Having spent a little time in St. Louis, I know, I sampled lots of them, and I have to say that my favorite is just the old-fashioned basic gooey cake, and that's what I want to show you how to make. What you want to do to create the cake is you just start with a yellow cake mix, 15.5 ounce cake mix. So I've just poured it into this bowl, and to this I'm going to add 3 ingredients. I'm going to add melted butter, half a cup, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 2 farm fresh eggs. Here's 1, and here's 2, okay? Now all I'm going to do is mix this together. This will make a nice thick batter, and you don't really need to worry about getting all the lumps out. You see what a beautiful color this is. What you're going to do is just layer this into a 9 by 13 baking pan. You can get a lot of exercise mixing this part of the recipe up, and it's good to burn a few calories off because this cake does have some calories in it, but it's worth it. It's so good. Okay, so there you go. You can see it's a nice, almost a paste, and I'm going to take this and just apply it to this pan. And I use the word apply because I'm just take a little flour on my hand so it doesn't stick to me. You just want to just mash it down and move it around the bottom of the pan and distribute this evenly. A little flour on the hand just keeps the batter from sticking to you. Okay, there we go. Stage 1 completed. All right, now, stage 2. This is sort of an icing, but it's the gooey bit. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna take 2 eggs again, another teaspoon of vanilla, and then an 8 ounce package of cream cheese. And you want that room temperature. You're just gonna take this and you wanna mix those ingredients together. Okay, that looks good. It's nice and creamy. Now what you want to do is take 4 cups, yes, 4 cups of powdered sugar and begin to slowly add this as it mixes together. Sugar, butter, vanilla. How can you go wrong? You can look in here and see what's going on, and you can understand where it gets its name, gooey. So I'm pausing the mixer for just a moment to push all of the extra powdered sugar around the edge and make sure it goes into the mixture. It's looking really good. And now I'm ready to take this, the second layer, and apply it to the top of the first layer. Nice and creamy. Beautiful cream cheese. And I want to get every little bit out of there like that, okay? Then just simply equally distribute this layer around the top. Pop it into an oven at 325 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. And you won't believe the result. And look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, as it cools, what you can do is just a little of that confectioner sugar and just top dress it like that. Beautiful. Once you try this cake, you're going to be baking them all the time. Give it a try. It smells so good. Okay, so if cooking isn't your thing, why not take Dad to a ball game like here and have a hot dog or something like that? But just don't give him one of those ugly ties. That's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And until next time, good eating and good health.
P. Allen Smith's Garden to Table is brought to you by
and by the makers of Job's Organics granular fertilizers. Great results, less work. EasyGardener.com. And by the makers of Job's Organics granular fertilizers. Great results, less work. EasyGardener.com.